This anime began with a teenager named Kazuma Hoshino and his younger brother Ayumu Hoshino. The two of them would visit an inn in a village. The reason they had gone to the village was because Ayumu was sick. Therefore, their parents told them to move to a cooler and cleaner environment at the countryside, Yamabiko town. While on the trip, on the bus, Kazuma looked engrossed in telling stories to Ayumu. But Ayumu felt they had gone the wrong way. They had gone in the wrong direction. Therefore, they stopped and had to wait for another bus for another hour. Soon, a monkey approached Ayumu. When he wanted to give it food, the monkey took Ayumu's hat. Seeing this, Kazuma immediately chased it. He was taken to a river. The longer the monkey ran, the more outrageous it got. Finally, Kazuma chased it into the forest. He climbed a tree to get it. After he got the hat, suddenly he fell. When he wanted to return to the bus stop, Kazuma got lost. He was afraid that a bear would appear. Suddenly, a cute girl named Yui Nakatsugawa appeared. Yui immediately showed Kazuma the way home. When she wanted to cross the river, Yui crossed the river so quickly that her underwear was visible. Kazuma immediately got nervous and said that he didn't see it. So when it was Kazuma's turn to cross, he became nervous, then lost his balance and fell on Yui's body. He accidentally kissed her lips. However, someone saw the incident, Ibuki Hinata. Ibuki was furious to see Kazuma, even though Kazuma didn't do that on purpose. Ibuki kicked Kazuma until he flew away. After that incident, Kazuma was finally able to return to the bus stop. He and Ayumu continued their journey. After arriving at their destination, he felt that the village looked different. When they entered the inn, they were greeted by the innkeeper named Senka Yorozu. She already knew that they were from the Hoshino family. Senka then took Kazuma's things to the room he would be staying in. But Kazuma accidentally called her Oba-san. This made Senka angry. Senka just wanted to be called Oni-san. Then Kazuma and Ayumu were moved to a room that had a fairly old feel, just like the one he had lived in before. Then Senka asked Kazuma to take a shower first. When he showered, chaos broke out again. He saw his bathroom being cleaned by a sexy woman, Sumuji Tudu. He panicked and ran, but ended up crashing into Senka. As a result, his towel was exposed and Senka accidentally saw his genitals. Kazuma's first day was really unlucky. Then Ayumu invited him to eat together. After eating, Kazuma tried to sleep. Then he remembered today, which was full of problems. Soon Ayumu, who couldn't sleep, came to Kazuma and asked to sleep together. The next day, when he was about to go to school, Yamabiko South Academy, Senka asked Sumuji for help to show Kazuma his school. But Kazuma still remembered yesterday's incident and became embarrassed himself. On the way, Kazuma said that he moved to a small village because his younger brother kept getting sick. Finally, he moved to the village where the air was cool. His parents also wanted to build a house in the village. Ayumu then parted ways because he was still in middle school. Arriving at school, Kazuma would be introduced to all the students. However, Ibuki, who was there, actually caused a riot because she recognized Kazuma as an impudent person from yesterday. She didn't want Kazuma to be in the same class as her. But the problem was that there were no more classes left. When he introduced himself, there was a guy named Daigo Minamiko Kubaru, who was also causing trouble. Daigo turned out to be the son of the class teacher. The two of them got into a small dispute. The teacher immediately punished Daigo and gave his chair to Kazuma. When lessons were about to start, many people asked questions about Kazuma. However, Ibuki often looked for trouble and discussed yesterday's problems in the forest. Finally, everyone there knew. Kazuma said that he didn't mean to, but Ibuki still thought wrong. During break time, Kazuma invited Daigo to buy bread together. Daigo immediately felt close to Kazuma. On the other hand, Ibuki and Mui were waiting for Kazuma, who wanted to eat together. When they got together, Yui immediately brought out a large amount of lunch. But strangely, Yui's body was still small and couldn't get fat. After school, Yui invited Kazuma to tour the city. Kazuma also wanted to invite Ayumu to go with him. His other friends were curious about Kazuma's younger brother. At the school gate, Sumugi was waiting for Kazuma to come home. She was afraid that Kazuma would get lost later. When at the intersection, Ayumu came with Sumugi's younger sister, Kasane Tudo. The others were surprised because Kazuma's younger brother was so different from Kazuma. Yui, who was innocent, immediately said that Ayumu didn't look like Kazuma. They also thought that Kazuma and Ayumu had different parents. They continued their journey to get around. First, they visited a supermarket. After buying what they wanted, they rested in a gazebo in the garden. Yui only bought a very large amount of sausage and it was all cheese-flavored. It seemed that Yui really liked cheese. Kazuma suddenly said that it tasted like cheese. Yui mistakenly thought that yesterday's kiss, she had a cheese smell in mouth, even though what Kazuma meant was the cake she gave him earlier. After they explored the city here and there, they wanted to go to Mount Futago. However, Yui felt they couldn't climb the mountain in school clothes, so she suggested that they went to Kotama Shrine. everyone agreed with Yui's idea. When Yui wanted to climb the temple stairs, she invited Kazuma to a duel with who got there first. Kazuma also agreed with Yui. He ran as fast as he could. Kazuma arrived before Yui. After arriving at the top, he saw a girl sweeping. The girl's name was Madoka Komodo. Kazuma wanted to introduce himself to Madoka, but Madoka ran away. It was getting late. There was still one more place they wanted to visit, a parfait place called Backpipe. Yui, who really liked eating parfait, immediately ordered the largest portion of parfait. She ate it all by herself, while others only saw her eating. After eating, there was cream stuck to Yui's cheeks. Kazuma tried to wipe it. This incident actually reminded Mu of her older brother, so she called Kazuma Oni-chan. Hearing this, the others could only look at each other. After eating parfait, they all went home. Ayumu told Kazuma that he was starting to like the small town. The story shifted to a dream experienced by Madoka. She was playing by the river. She was accompanied by a boy who gave her a ring. This guy might be Kazuma. On the other hand, when Senka was about to wake Kazuma, she heard Kazuma and Ayumu talking about hair. Senka, who thought talking about hair was dirty, immediately broke down the door to their room. It turned out that Senka had thought wrong. After that, Kazuma and Ayumu went to school as usual. While on the way, they met Daigo. When Kazuma and Ayumu had separated to their own school, Ibuki and Yui came to greet them. But without them realizing it, there was a girl who was spying on Kazuma from afar. After arriving at school, Yui's usual activities include eating a lot. She couldn't wait anymore. Therefore, Kazuma immediately went to the cafeteria to buy bread. Meanwhile, at school, gossip about Kazuma in the forest had spread everywhere. After class, Yui was hungry again even though she had eaten a lot. When outside the classroom, the same girl was seen still spying on Kazuma. Kazuma knew where the girl was and tried to chase her. But Kazuma ended up crashing into Madoka. Kazuma asked about Madoka's condition, but he didn't understand why Madoka's face suddenly turned red. Madoka slammed Kazuma and she hurried away from there. Meanwhile, Kazuma was taken to the infirmary. Sumiyuki told him that Madoka had androphobia, where she couldn't get close to boys. Just one touch and she would immediately reflex against them. But Sumiyuki told him not to hate Madoka. The next day, Ayumu went for a walk to draw sketches. On the other hand, Kazuma had just woken up. Senka told Kazuma to follow Ayumu. When Kazuma wanted to catch up with Ayumu, he remembered yesterday's incident with Madoka, so he decided to go to the Madoka shrine in the hope that she would be there. After arriving at the shrine, Madoka was there. She almost ran away again, but Kazuma immediately apologized. Madoka seemed to apologize to Kazuma. After that, they chatted casually. After finished chatting and getting to know each other, Kazuma wanted to go home. Suddenly, Madoka asked about gossip about Kazuma and Yui in the forest. Kazuma told her everything honestly. Then he said that he also kissed Yui by accident. As a result, Madoka was disappointed and cried when she heard all this. Not long after, someone threw grains at Kazuma. None other than the girl who stalked Kazuma. Her name was Koyori Tudo, Sumuji's second younger sibling. She thought Kazuma was a dangerous person to have in the city. Therefore, she continued to throw grains at Kazuma, until Madoka finally told her to stop. When she wanted to go down, Kazuma and Madoka had to close their eyes first so they wouldn't notice how she went down. The next day after school, Yui invited the others to go to Bagpipe, but Ibuki said that she had extracurriculars after school. Meanwhile, Daigo had English lessons at home. So like it or not, Yui and Kazuma went together. On the way, they met Ayumu. He looked listless. Ayumu told them that he was joining an arts extracurricular. Then Yui said that she was interested in being the model. It didn't take long for Kazuma to realize something about Ayumu's red face. When he checked, it turned out that Ayumu had a fever. Kazuma immediately carried Ayumu home. Yui felt jealous of Ayumu because she was treated the same way by her older brother. In the end, Yui and Kazuma didn't hang out. Yui followed Kazuma and Ayumu back to their inn. Luckily, Ayumu's fever wasn't serious. Yui was treated to special food made by Senka, but she was a very curious person to the point of eavesdropping on Yui and Kazuma's conversation. Because Yui had been hungry for a long time, she immediately finished all the food. The next day at school, there was a girl with pink hair who was ordering some vegetables and food over the phone. In the same place, Kazuma and Daigo had just returned from the cafeteria to buy bread. Suddenly, Daigo wanted to pee. Daigo threw his bread at Kazuma. However, when Kazuma caught the bread, he ended up crashing into the pink-haired girl. The girl's cell phone fell. Kazuma had said that the girl was cute. The girl became angry when she heard it, but apparently Kazuma said that the cell phone hanger was cute. Ayumu really liked the cell phone hanger like that. Because she was embarrassed, the girl immediately left. Daigo, who saw this, said that the girl was their senpai named Hina Sakai. Kazuma felt that he had been rude to his senior by calling her cute. However, Hina had proven her beauty and cuteness. There was nothing that could compare to it. On the other hand, Hina was indeed a popular person, but she was a very quiet person. On the other hand, as usual, Kazuma and the others had lunch. They were talking about the marathon being held in the city. Then they talked about the Hakonen marathon in that city. The route of the Hakonen run was around the city. However, this route could make a runner bored. Someone could also be a representative of a cafe or other place. The cafe would sponsor the runners so they could represent them. Coincidentally, Yui was the bagpipe representative. Coming home from school, Kazuma was shocked because he was told to train to become a representative of the Yorozuyo Inn. But Senka trained him with strange exercises that were not related to running. Finally, Kazuma decided to run alone. On the way, he saw a bag full of groceries lying under a tree. He suspected that there must be an owner nearby. It turned out that the owner of the tree was none other than Koyori. She was on top of the tree. Kazuma, who looked up, could see Koyori's panties, which were not covered by her short, flowing skirt. Koyori, who felt embarrassed, slipped and fell. Luckily, Kazuma was on time to help her. After that, they walked together while chatting. Kazuma asked about Koyori's large groceries. It turned out that all the shopping was for an old man who lived alone. Kazuma, who heard that, felt bad because he was a man but didn't bring anything. Kazuma offered to help carry Koyori's bag, but Koyori refused. Finally, they brought the groceries together. When they arrived at the grandfather's house, the three of them chatted at length. The grandfather thought that Kazuma and Koyori were dating. The grandfather had a grandson, Kita, who was about to have surgery. But because he was still small, Kita was very scared. Grandpa then told Koyori to visit him. On the other hand, Hina, who had just finished showering, was still thinking about Kazuma. She felt guilty because she had scolded him a little. She intended to apologize later. The next day, Kazuma woke up late again. Senka told him that Ayumu had gone to Daigo's house. Then Kazuma continued his training again. On the way, he met Ibuki, who had just bought a drink at the supermarket. She was wearing tracksuits because she was taking part in extracurriculars and didn't want to practice running at Hakonen. Ibuki offered Kazuma a drink, but Kazuma refused because later they would kiss indirectly through the drinking bottle. Hearing that, Ibuki got angry and kicked Kazuma's leg. Kazuma asked Ibuki if Yui was practicing too, but Yui was only busy eating and not exercising at all. Meanwhile, grandfather and Koyori visited Kita, who was about to undergo surgery. Koyori tried to encourage Kita. However, Kita instead said that Koyori had to join the Hakonen marathon so that they could both fight together. Hearing that, Koyori promised Kita that she would take part in a running competition so that they could fight together. Meanwhile, Hina also wanted to take part in the Hakonen marathon. On the way, she saw a teddy bear lying on the bench. Hina was having fun and invited the doll to talk. Hina brought the doll. When she was about to continue training, she saw Kazuma in front of her. Hina actually got nervous and dropped the doll. Kazuma took the doll while apologizing for yesterday's incident. Hina still couldn't apologize because it was too late for her to do it. After that, Kazuma ran at incredible speed to the top of Kotama Shrine. He arrived at the top almost fainting. When he got there, Madoka was sweeping. Then they chatted there while telling the history of the city and the Hakonen Marathon event. Meanwhile, Ayumu went to Daigo's house and was told to do something heretical. Daigo told Ayumu to cheer Kazuma on in women's clothing. After that, the long-awaited festival event arrived. But before the event started, they had to say their vows first, led by Tsumoji and Hina. After finishing, then on to the first competition, which was eating bread hanging at the end of the running track. The participants were Madoka and Yui. It was certain that if Yui took part in a competition related to food, she would definitely win. In contrast to Madoka, who seemed to be having difficulty taking her bread. The student in charge of holding the bread hanger felt sorry. He lowered the pole a little so Madoka could reach it. The next competition was the 100-meter dash. The participant was Hina, a student who was admired by many girls. Finally, she managed to win. In contrast to Tsumugi, who really sucked at sports. Moreover, her body was too chubby, making it difficult for her to run. It was Kazua's turn to take part in a competition to find people. He got a card that said big chest. That meant he should look for girls with big breasts. Kazuma saw Madoka in the distance. He tried to invite her. But he forgot that Madoka had androphobia. In the end, Madoka hit him until he fell. After that, there was a demonstration of extracurricular archery represented by Ibuki. But she couldn't focus because she kept looking at Kazuma, who was drinking. As a result, the arrow missed. When she tried the second time, she succeeded. After the demonstration, they took a break. Kazuma and Ayumu joined in eating with Yui and her parents. They brought a lot of food from Yui. They also brought 2 extra bento boxes. Senka came and brought the inn's specialty food. After lunch, there was a butt-fighting competition. The student who could knock down another student with their buttocks would win the race. After all the events were finished, move on to the main event, the Hikonen Marathon. Everyone was ready. But before that, Daigo first introduced the participants taking part in the competition. Not long afterward, Ayumu appeared and encouraged Kazuma. However, he was wearing a female cheerleader outfit and pom-poms. Kazuma was shocked beyond words and wanted to scold Daigo. Kazuma came to Daigo with a red face. Daigo was already scared. But it turned out Kazuma actually said a good job to Daigo. The Hikonen Marathon began. In the marathon, several posts had challenges. In the first post, participants must eat 30 bowls of red bean porridge. Yui, who had just taken part in a bread eating competition, was still able to finish 30 bowls of porridge very quickly. At the second post, participants must catch 10 eels. The girls were very hectic when they caught eels. However, it was different from Koyori because she caught the eels quite calmly. This made her temporarily lead the race. In front of it, there was post 3, which required them to change clothes according to the booth number they chose. Koyori had to wear a wedding dress, which made it difficult for her to run. Meanwhile, Kazuma, Yui, and Hina had arrived at post 3. Yui got a penguin mascot costume, which made her unable to run. Meanwhile, Hina got clothes with a Chinese theme. When she saw Yu wearing a mascot shirt, she felt like holding her because Yui was so cute. Hina then chased Yui excitedly. On the other hand, Koyori was struggling to become a champion to fulfill her promise to Kita so that he would be more enthusiastic about undergoing his operation. But suddenly, Koyori sprained her leg, making it difficult for her to stand. Coincidentally, Kazuma arrived. Kazuma was seen wearing the broom's clothes. Koyori couldn't stand up anymore. Kazuma then told Koyori to just stop, but Koyori refused because she wanted to keep her promise. Kazuma saw Yui and Hina, who had almost caught up with them. Finally, Kazuma decided to carry Koyori. On the other hand, the audience was waiting for the participants to arrive. When Kazuma appeared, they couldn't believe that Koyori was being carried by Kazuma. Soon they reached the finish line together. When Daigo judged, it turned out that Koyori was the first to touch the line. Finally, she managed to keep her promise to Kita, who was watching the competition on the television, was happy with Koyori's victory. He promised himself to fight too. A few days later, Madoka went to the forest where Kazuma and Yui had kissed. Meanwhile, at school, Yui told Kazuma that there would be a final exam, but Kazuma underestimated it. However, Ibuki added that if Kazuma did not pass the final test, then he would have to take the remedial test during the summer vacation. Kazuma looked shocked. He didn't want to have to do remedial work during the holiday season. Yui said that she wanted to learn from Ibuki. However, Daigo proposed to study together. As a result, Kazuma asked Senka for permission because his friends would be staying there and studying together. Senka felt there was no problem. After all, the inn was also empty. Not long after, Kazuma's friends came. Madoka also wanted to come. It seemed that she was walking towards the inn. She wanted to apologize to Kazuma. When she arrived at the inn, she was surprised to see Ayumu. Hina really liked cute things. When everyone had gathered and the learning begins, even though there was time, Yui was still thinking about food. They studied until 7:30 and rested first. Several people wanted to take a shower. Daigo suddenly became happy and excited. The women's and men's bathing rooms were separate. This made his morale drop drastically, even though he really wanted to see the girls bathing. Then there were voices from the girls, which made Daigo excited to peek. But when Daigo wanted to peek, Koyori, who already knew about Daigo's actions, immediately threw soapy water at him. However, it seemed that Daigo still hadn't given up. He still wanted to find a way to peek at girls bathing. He found a way, which was through the back. When he went there, he met Senka. After bathing, Madoka and Koyori played table tennis. The two of them looked like they were fighting really fiercely. Madoka didn't realize that her yukata was open. Others could see her large breasts peeking out from the open slit of the yukata. After bathing, the girls saw lots of fireflies around them, so Kazuma, who was relaxing, was invited to see fireflies with Ayumu. He asked Yui to come, but she refused. Yui refused because it reminded her of the past when her older brother wanted to get married. At that time, she was angry and went into the forest. There she met Ibuki, who came to hear her story. She didn't realize it was already afternoon. Finally, Yui decided to go home. Yui realized that she didn't have to act like that. When she wanted to meet her brother at the river bank, her brother was making out with her future wife. In the end, Yui didn't have time to congratulate her brother. Not long after, Sumui told Yui to call her friends to have dinner together. When they were eating, Yui, who was usually enthusiastic about eating, this time looked gloomy and ate very slowly. After dinner, they continued studying again until late at night. Because it was too late at night, they finished studying together and prepared to sleep. There seemed to be something unique about Kasane. She changed her nightgown to an animal jacket. On the other hand, Daigo was still looking for ways to peek at the girls' activities when they were about to sleep. It was clear that Daigo didn't want to lose. When he was about to peek, Senka was there again. After everyone was asleep, Kazuma wanted to go to the toilet. In the toilet, he met Yui, who couldn't sleep. She said that her stomach was growling. Kazuma then gave Yui the food that Tsumugi had made. Tsumugi had predicted that Yui would be like this. On the other hand, Madoka woke up and saw that Yui was not there. When she came out, it turned out that Yui and Kazuma were alone together looking at the bright moon. Long story short, they had passed the test. After that, they waited for the results to come out. Daigo was already afraid that he wouldn't pass. Daigo didn't want to be stressed, so he invited Kazuma and the others to Honshu to have fun. They agreed. But Ibuki couldn't participate because she had extracurricular activities. She had to focus on training because there would be a match soon. The next day, Hina wanted to hang out too with Kazuma and his friends. She intended that this time she would apologize to Kazuma. When she arrived, she asked where Ayumu was. Kazuma said that he didn't come because he was drawing with his friend. After arriving there when they wanted to do karaoke, they had to wait another 2 hours. To spend the time, they played around at the game center. Many games could be played, such as Ding Dong Dance. Kasane seemed skilled at playing the Ding Dong Dance. While the others were busy playing, Madoka could only stay silent and watch the others. When she was told to try the Ding Dong Dance, she stomped carelessly on the dance board. Finally, the game was game over continuously. But even so, many people saw Madoka play. Bai was seen playing at the claw machine to get free food. Meanwhile, Daigo was playing a game that involved the female characters not wearing clothes. Daigo and Kazuma were a bit perverted. Then Kazuma went to Yui's place. Yui said that she hadn't gotten the toy she wanted. Therefore, she wanted to buy more coins. When Kazuma tried the game, he managed to get a toy in the form of a pin like Hina's, named Boba Pin. Daigo said that the item was a rare item from the claw machine. Not long after, Yui came again bringing lots of coins, even though she could have bought cheap food instead of buying a lot of coins. Meanwhile, Tsumugi was playing games like The Sims. However, Kazuma was nervous about playing the game because there was sexual activity between the players. Kazuma said that he couldn't accompany Tsumugi to play. After that, Kazuma went to the bathroom. On the other hand, Hina was in the bathroom, intending to apologize to Kazuma. Then Kazuma came in when she wanted to go out. Kazuma talked to Hina and gave Boba-pin to Hina. Hina was so excited. Finally, after waiting 2 hours, they were able to enter the karaoke. But instead of singing, they all focused on the food menu at that place, which was delicious and had large portions. Madoka seemed interested in foods that contained honey. Even though she had never eaten honey, just imagining it, it seemed delicious. Then they started singing together. After finishing karaoke, it all went home. When Kazuma came home, Ayumu told him that he had been drawing with his friend at the observation point on the mountain. Ayumu recommended to Kazuma to go there. The next day, their test scores came out. It seemed that Kazuma still had bad grades. Meanwhile, Daigo seemed to have a lot of bad grades. In contrast to Ibuki, even though she was busy practicing for extracurriculars, her grades remained stable. Yui told him that Ibuki's match would be held next week. They planned to support her directly. 1 week later, they came to the match venue to cheer for Ibuki. Even though the place was far away, they were very enthusiastic. Tsumugi and Hina couldn't come because they had something to do. Soon, the match started. Ibuki could advance to the last round, but unfortunately, she failed. When they were waiting for Ibuki to finish, Yui said that Ibuki's cell phone was not active, so she couldn't be contacted. As a result, they just went home. On the way, Kazuma thought of the observation spot recommended by Ayumu. Then he asked Ayumu about the place. Once he knew the place, he went straight there. When he went there, he met Ibuki. Kazuma asked why Ibuki didn't come home with the others because they were all worried about her. Ibuki said that she had been practicing archery for a long time since middle school. Only when there was a match in the last round, she was always afraid and nervous. This made her dizzy and unclear and wanted everything to be over quickly. Therefore, she often lost. She was shy and didn't want to show herself in front of her friends. Then Kazuma sought the initiative by releasing the burden by shouting at that place. Ibuki did the same too. Soon, they went home together. Ibuki asked Kazuma not to tell anyone. Ibuki also asked Kazuma to call her first name and not her last name. Not long after, Yui arrived. She already realized that Ibuki was going to that place. Only she was confused about why Kazuma was there. The next day, Hina delivered things to Tsumugi. She wanted to go home quickly because she wanted to study. On the other hand, Yui got a call from Kazuma. Kazuma asked her to go to the beach next Wednesday. Yui was immediately enthusiastic and wanted to join. When Kazuma said that he wanted to invite Ibuki too, Yui couldn't help but be confused. Long story short, 1 week passed. They departed as scheduled. Madoka turned out to be good at writing stories. She shared her stories with the children. Meanwhile, Hina was focused on studying, but she thought maybe she could relax on vacation once in a while. When they got there, Yui and Koyori were excited and wanted to immediately jump into the seawater. Different from Kazuma and Daigo. Daigo seemed impatient waiting for Tsumugi to change clothes. Meanwhile, Madoka looks embarrassed to wear revealing clothes. Even though the bikini really suited her, she was pushed by Kasane towards Kazuma. This made her embarrassed. Madoka tried to blow up the life vest before swimming. She looked troubled. Kazuma came and wanted to help her. After that, they played in the water. Meanwhile, Ibuki was playing in the sand with Ayumu. Not long after, Kazuma arrived. He thanked Ibuki for accompanying Ayumu. It turned out that Ibuki didn't swim because she couldn't swim, just like Ayumu. Then Hina came and helped Ayumu learn to swim. Meanwhile, Ibuki would be taught by Kazuma. After that, the two of them taught Ibuki and Ayumu. When Kazuma was teaching Ibuki to swim, Ibuki misunderstood him. When swimming, Ibuki kept dipping her face into the water until finally she ran out of breath. Kazuma didn't tell Ibuki to look up. On the other hand, Yu wanted to buy shaved ice. Then he asked Tsumugi about Kazuma. When Tsumugi said that Kazuma was teaching Ibuki to swim, Yu suddenly remembered her older brother who had taught her to swim. After finishing buying shaved ice, Tsumugi was no longer there, even though Yui had bought 2 shaved ice. Finally, Yui gave Tsumugi's shaved ice to Madoka. After eating shaved ice, Yui was relaxing on the beach. This was a good opportunity for Madoka to ask about Yui's feelings towards Kazuma. When she asked the question, but answered that her feelings for Kazuma were exactly the same as her feelings for her older brother. But Yui seemed hesitant to answer. Not long after, Tsumugi brought a watermelon to play a game of breaking watermelons. After everyone had gathered, Kazuma had the first turn. He closed his eyes. Kasane wanted to play for fun and told Kazuma to grope other people's chests. Kazuma said that it was Ibuki's chest. Even though what he touched was Daigo's chest, Ibuki was furious and immediately hit Kazuma on the head. Ibuki got a second turn, but Ibuki instead hit Kazuma. After that, it was Yui's turn. She, who had a keen sense of smell for food, managed to find a watermelon and cut it open. After playing the game, they played beach volleyball. The only ones who didn't come were Ayumu, Hina, and Tsumugi. Tsumugi wanted to accompany Ayumu, who was resting. Meanwhile, Hina didn't know where to go. Daigo started to think strange things about Ayumu. Kazuma, who was annoyed, punched him in the face until he had a nosebleed. On the other hand, Tsumugi and Ayumu chatted. Ayumu asked why Tsumugi worked part-time at the Yorozuyo Inn. Tsumugi said that she did it as practice. In the future, she wanted to work there again because she really liked the inn. Moreover, the place she lived was outstandingly beautiful. Ayumu thought that Tsumugi was similar to Kazuma. Ayumu wanted to be an independent person who was not spoiled and not always taken care of by his older brother. It was time for Ayumu to make Kazuma smile. On the other hand, Hina was playing alone. Not long after, Kazuma came and asked her to go home because the others were ready to go home. Hina's opportunity to apologize came. When she apologized, Hina felt dissatisfied because that wasn't what she meant. In the afternoon, when Ibuki and Yui went home together, Yui asked about when Kazuma called Ibuki by her first name. But Ibuki didn't want to tell Yui the truth. It seemed that from then on, the competition between Ibuki and Yui to get Kazuma began. Yui, who was eating ice cream, was startled by Hina peeking in the window. On the other hand, Kazuma had just come home from hanging out with Daigo. On his way home, he saw Hina looking miserable alone in the park. When Kazuma asked her, Hina suddenly sat down limply. It turned out that Hina was very hungry. Kazuma bought her bread. Kazuma asked why Hina was so hungry. Hina said that she ran away from home because she was arguing with her father. She didn't bring anything and didn't know where to sleep. She also couldn't possibly run to the inn. When Hina wanted to leave, Kazuma was forced to take Hina back to the inn. They entered quietly. When Kazuma was in his room, Ayumu called him to eat together. Because Hina had already eaten, Kazuma was the only one who ate. Hina saw there was a wet tissue there. When Kazuma returned to the room, he saw Hina, who was cleaning her sweat with a tissue and taking off all her clothes. Hina also seemed to have forgotten to wear a bra. After the evening, Hina, who was a guest, didn't feel comfortable if Kazuma slept on the floor. She had the idea to sleep in the same bed as Kazuma. Kazuma wanted to do it too. Before going to bed, Kazuma asked why Hina was making a fuss with her father. Hina said that she wanted to study at Tokyo University, but her father forbade her because he was afraid that Hina would not come back. Even though Hina had good intentions to study further and develop her parents' business. But unfortunately, these words had not been conveyed to his father. Kazuma told her to have the courage to talk to her father. It wasn't long before Hina remembered to apologize for what happened when they first met. Kazuma never minded it. The important thing was that she had to be brave. In the morning, Kazuma was surprised because Hina hugged Kazuma's body. Suddenly, Senka opened the door to Kazuma's room and saw the two of them. Finally, Senka tried them both. It was okay if Kazuma brought people who were in trouble. However, because Kazuma and Hina didn't get permission first, Hina had to work there. Kazuma also helped work at the inn to replace Tsumivi, who was returning home. When they were cleaning, Hina's father came and immediately told Hina to go home. Kazuma, who saw this, tried to separate Hina and her father, who kept pulling her. Kazuma just found out that it was Hina's father. Then Kazuma took the opportunity to say that Hina's goal in wanting to study at Tokyo University was to study management for her parents' business, but they both seemed increasingly fierce. Senka then came and said that they had caused a commotion to the other guests. Senka was ready to beat them both up. When he got home, Hina's father thought again about his decision. When his wife heard Hina's statement, she wondered why her husband had not yet allowed Hina. The next day, Senka received a letter from Hina's father to take part in a tug-of-war competition, which he usually used to fight over girls. Reading the letter, Kazuma accepted the challenge. If she won, then Hina was free to choose her path in life. Long story short, the event began. If Kazuma lost, it meant Hina would be taken home. When the match started, Kazuma tried to pull hard. He almost lost, but he was able to hold back. Kazuma used all his strength and he succeeded even though he had to bounce. After that incident, Hina's father didn't want to leave the room. In fact, in the match, Hina's father deliberately gave in because he secretly agreed to Hina's wishes. Finally, Hina came to her father, who was silent in his room. Meanwhile, Madoka, who wanted to go to the temple, was surprised to see so many people. When she asked several old men there, they answered that there had just been a tug-of-war match between a father and a son, but they had misunderstood. They thought Kazuma would propose Hina, and the tug-of-war was the way to win her father's heart. After that, Kazuma, who was sleeping, got a call from Daigo. Daigo asked Kazuma for help with something. The next day, Koyori had just returned from Hawaii and went straight to the temple. There she met Senka, who told her Madoka wasn't feeling good, especially after yesterday's tug-of-war match. She told Koyori to come over to her. When Koyori asked Madoka's grandfather, it turned out that he also misunderstood Kazuma, who was going to propose to Hina. On the other hand, Kazuma and the others who wanted to study together were disturbed by Koyori's arrival. She immediately asked Kazuma the truth, whether he would marry Hina. When Koyori wanted to tell Madoka the truth, she realized that Madoka actually liked Kazuma. But Koyori still wanted to meet Madoka. Meanwhile, Kasane and Daigo had a plan. When they met at the restaurant, Daigo planned to bring Kazuma and Madoka together for a date. Yui, who was there, was just silent. Ibuki, who didn't agree, immediately left, followed by Yui, who left the parfait that she hadn't finished eating. Outside, Ibuki asked Yui if she could accept Kazuma dating Madoka. Yui said that she considered Kazuma to be like her own brother. Then Kasane and Koyori went to meet Madoka to ask her to go on a date with Kazuma. They said they would take care of everything. Madoka just had to read a dating guidebook. The next day, Daigo told Kazuma that they would hang out, but he lied so that Kazuma and Madoka could go on a date. Meanwhile, Daigo and Koyori would spy on them. Finally, they walked together to a playground. Madoka confidently invited Kazuma to ride the roller coaster, but instead she was dizzy. After that, they entered the haunted house, but Madoka was scared. Coming out of the haunted house, they went to the zoo and played with rabbits. But suddenly, Kazuma started talking about Yui, because he saw Madoka enthusiastically playing with animals was similar to Yui. After finishing, the two of them had lunch. Madoka had brought large portions of food she made herself, but Kazuma discussed about Yui again. It was already afternoon. The ride they rode last was a Ferris wheel. It looked like Madoka was getting a little bored and annoyed. Meanwhile, Daigo and Koyori, who were spying on them, thought that Madoka looked a bit sad. They assumed something bad was happening between Madoka and Kazuma. The next day, Madoka invited Kazuma to go hiking. Kazuma was shocked by what Madoka was wearing. Not long after, the bus arrived. It was time to go to the hiking location. Madoka then took Kazuma to the river bank where they had previously met. Madoka did that on purpose so that Kazuma would remember something. When Madoka crossed the river, her hat flew off. When Kazuma put Madoka's hat on, he remembered that Madoka was a girl who had met him at that place as a child. Since she was little, Madoka hadn't been able to get close to boys. When she got close to a guy, that person was Kazuma. Madoka felt very happy. Until she grew up, Madoka still remembered Kazuma. She had liked Kazuma since childhood. She just wanted Kazuma to remember those times. But Kazuma said that he couldn't accept Madoka. Madoka understood. Madoka said that because Kazuma already remembered, she wanted Kazuma to express what he used to feel before they parted ways. Kazuma said that he wanted them to be friends forever. Meanwhile, Daigo regretted Kazuma's attitude in rejecting Madoka. Moreover, Madoka's breasts were large. Not long after, Madoka came and embarrassed Daigo. Meanwhile, Ibuki and Mui were discussing the role of Megami, which would be played by Tsumugi. Meanwhile, Yui would be her companion. Ibuki suggested that Yui to play Megami. Because the role of Ogami was played by Kazuma, if Yui became Megami, then she could confess her feelings for Kazuma at the festival. But Mui still considered Kazuma like her own brother. Ibuki scared Yui, so she immediately confessed her feelings for Kazuma before the other girl did first. That evening, Yui got a call from Ayumu asking to be a model for his painting tomorrow. The next day, Kazuma just woke up even though it was already noon. He was told by Senka to go for a walk. Kazuma immediately left. It turned out that was Senka and Ayumu's plan. Meanwhile, Kazuma was confused about where to go. Initially, he wanted to go to the shrine, but in the end, he preferred to go to the supermarket. On the way, he met Ibuki, who was alone contemplating on the bridge. She was alone because she said Yui had other things to do. Then, because the two of them didn't have anything to do, Ibuki invited Kazuma to Honsho. Because previously Ibuki didn't join because she was busy with her archery practice. Therefore, instead, Ibuki wanted to go alone with Kazuma. Kazuma agreed to Ibuki's invitation. On the other hand, Yui just arrived at the inn. When Ayumu wanted to get ready, Yui wanted to take off her clothes. She thought that Ayumu wanted to paint her naked. Meanwhile, Kazuma and Ibuki seemed to be having fun. They went here and there, tried various kinds of games, and ended with karaoke. The two of them were thought to be dating by the waitress at the restaurant. Meanwhile, Ayumu was half-finished painting Yui. Then he asked Yui to rest for a moment. Then we asked Ayumu why he wanted her to be the model. Ayumu reasoned that he wanted to make Kazuma smile like Tsumugi said before. Ayumu heard rumors that Yui and Kazuma were dating, so maybe if there was a photo of Yui that Kazuma liked, he would feel happy. However, Yui said that she considered Kazuma like her own brother. Not long after, Tsumugi arrived. She said that Kazuma was different from her older sister. Not long after, Ayumu's painting was finished. Before going home, Yui asked Ayumu if she really happened to be with Kazuma, would Ayumu not be lonely? In the future, Kazuma would definitely spend more time with her. Ayumu said that it was okay, as long as his brother was happy, he would be happy too. After returning from the inn, Yui thought again about Tsumugi's words. On the other hand, Kazuma and Ibuki were still chatting in a gazebo. Ibuki said that the two of them should date, especially after someone thought they were dating. But Kazuma thought it was just a joke. Ibuki fell silent. After that, Kazuma went home. But after Kazuma thought about it again, it seemed that Ibuki had really said that. Finally, Kazuma came back and immediately said sorry to Ibuki because he couldn't accept her. Hearing this, Ibuki became sad and cried. Not long after, it rained. That night, Yui intended to call her brother to say congratulations. When Yui called her brother, he told her that his wife was pregnant. Yui was very happy because she would have a nephew. The next day, Ibuki left early in the morning. She visited the observation area and released her burden there by screaming. After that, she went to school. Then Yui came and told her that her sister-in-law was pregnant. A few moments later, Kazuma looked shocked because he had to play Ogami. Previously, Koyori had won a running competition. So Koyori couldn't be Ogami, especially since she was a girl too. When Kazuma and Daigo went to school, Daigo was so noisy about Kazuma's co-star, Tsumugi. Not long after, Yui and Ibuki arrived. But suddenly, Yui and Kazuma became awkward. After school, Daigo asked the others to eat, but they were busy. Suddenly, Daigo's mother, their class teacher, came and scolded her son. Later, Kazuma and Yui went to the shrine to try on the festival costumes, but they were both awkward and instead kept quiet. Not long after, Hina arrived. She seemed to feel the silence between the two of them. After arriving at the shrine, Kazuma put on his clothes first. Kasane photographed Kazuma so that later his photos could be sold for high prices to male students at school. Sugivi was already wearing her costume. She looked very graceful. Meanwhile, Yui and Hina became her companions. After that, they rested. Yui wasn't there and was going to the toilet. Tsumugi also wanted to go to the toilet, but it turned out Tsumugi secretly went out of the shrine and waited for Yui. She wanted to invite Yui to talk. She wanted to know what happened between Yui and Kazuma. Yui also didn't understand what she felt. After she realized that Kazuma was not her older brother, she felt awkward and nervous when she was close to Kazuma. Tsumugi said that it was love. Only Yui was still hesitant. On the other hand, Kazuma felt strange as to why Yui had been gone for so long. Hina scolded Kazuma why he didn't say Yui was beautiful when she was wearing her costume. Hina asked Kazuma to speak frankly and be brave. That night, Yui still thought about Tsumugi's words. Only she didn't know what love was. The next day, Yui felt very sleepy because she had stayed up late the night before. In the afternoon, Madoka's mother compiled a rundown of tomorrow's events. She gave directions on what to do, especially Ogami and Megami. That evening, Madoka got a chat from Tsunuji that tomorrow she would pretend to be sick. Long story short, the festival arrived. The girls were ready. Tsunuji immediately pretended to be sick so that Yui could replace her. Because there was no time left, Yui finally accepted it. After all, she already knew all the procedures. Meanwhile, the one who would replace Yui was Kasane. Soon, the event started by giving a scroll to Kazuma. After that, Kazuma was taken on a stretcher to the bridge. There were already lots of people there. At the same time, Yui arrived. At first, Kazuma didn't know it was Yui. After finding out, Yui became awkward. Ayumu tried to encourage his brother not to be nervous. When Kazuma opened the scroll, it contained a heartfelt statement to Yui that he loved Yui. Kazuma became unsure. However, according to Madoka's mother, the message must be clear and spoken wholeheartedly. Finally, loudly and shyly, Kazuma confessed his feelings for Yui. Yui, who heard that, was confused about the answer. Then Yuki told Yui to speak loudly. With all her heart, Yui screamed that she loved Kazuma too. After the festival, they all ate to celebrate the success of the festival. Meanwhile, outside, Madoka and Ibuki chatted to each other about Kazuma rejecting them. But they accepted it all because Kazuma had already made his choice that he chose Yui. This is the end of Hoshizora Kakaru Hashi. Thank you so much for staying in this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you updated with our latest contents. See you in the next video.